This morning I was watching YouTube. That's always a problem. And I saw this lady making the coolest thing. So I thought, you know what? I'm gonna make that. But I don't have supplies, so I'm headed in town. I'm gonna go to some thrifting shops here locally, grab some supplies, and we're going to make this project together. Can't wait. Let's get started. So my name is Cindy and I'm with ReinventedDelaware.com. We share all sorts of projects, upcycles and repurposing, thrift store finds, and furniture makeovers, and all the things. I'm a YouTube watcher too. Like you, I love watching YouTube. And the downfall of that is that you see all of these projects that you want to make yourself. So that's what happened to me this morning. And I saw this thing. I'm going to share the channel of who I saw the project from down below. Can't bring her name right to my mind, but I'll be sure to leave that link down below because I want you to go watch her video. It's very good, very inspirational. Obviously, because I'm headed in town to get supplies like she has, and I wanted to take you along with me when I get to the thrift store. We'll talk more about what the project is here in just a little bit. It's going to be a day of thrifting, making this project. That's always a nice surprise in your town if your local train goes rushing by. I don't know why, but I just enjoy that sound so much and just watching that. I'm at this thrift store. It's called God's Way. We've been here lots of times together. We go thrifting here on a regular basis here on this channel, and this was my first stop. I basically have a track around my town that I go to. We have 4 stores and I'll hit them up in the same order almost every time. Do you do that? Do you have your thrift stores kind of mapped out on a track that you hit up the same way every time? Let me know down in the comments if you do. I stopped here first and I started looking for the pieces that I need for the project. Now, I haven't told you yet what the project is, so hang tight. I'll share with you what the project is going to be here in just a little bit. In the meantime, let's keep shopping for some inexpensive glass items. Okay, that was a little bit of a dry run. I'm looking for some specific things. I'm really trying hard not to get distracted, and that's hard in a thrift store to not get distracted, because as soon as you're looking for one thing, you see all the other things. Like, you just see all the other things, and You're supposed to grab it when you see it, and I get that, but I'm also trying to keep things minimal, sort of, not really, at my house. Maybe I should say I'm trying not to accumulate too much stuff. And that is the downfall of thrifting. But I have a goal of getting specific items today. I have splurged and bought one other thing. I'll show you here at the end of the video, but we're on to the next one. We only have 4 in our local town. I'm limiting myself to that. Let's head to the Goodwill. This is one of the supplies that I had to stop by the hardware store. We have a local Ace and I jumped in there. And you know, it's always good to do some price shopping. So I looked at the JB Weld and it, you know, for the same amount at 0.85 ounces was actually 50 cents more per container. So I opted for the Gorilla Glue. It's still a name brand. It's still high quality. So I grabbed that one instead and then I headed home, and all the plates that I purchased today needed to be washed as well as gone over with alcohol to remove all the residue. Then it was time to read the back of that epoxy container. And listen, I have some vision problems. So this magnifying glass that I have, it is a lifesaver. It magnifies this fine print and it also puts a light on it, and it's great for clipping your fingernails too. I'm wondering, have you guessed the project that we're working on? If you haven't, by this point, I bet you are. You're seeing that I'm stacking the different size clear glass plates together to form these beautiful flowers. Have you been seeing the garden flowers made from different plates? Now, I've seen them made with colored plates, opaque plates that you can't see through and all sorts, but I wanted to put my own spin on it and use all clear glass. I did purchase a amber colored pie plate and changed my mind at the end of that. You'll see that I did not use that at all. And I also found these little candlesticks, these glass candlesticks in a little stash of, I don't know, they were at my house. I don't know where they came from, but I have a whole bunch of them. So I thought I would use those as the center of the flowers instead of those bowls that I got. I just like the look of them better. So I've kind of fiddled around to make the design that I wanted to, and then I headed out to my outdoor workshop to do this work with the epoxy. Now, epoxy has some odor to it, and I wanted to be in a well-ventilated area, and outdoors was the best option.
Be sure to read the instructions when you're using epoxy. You want to make sure that you follow that brand's instructions. They could vary from brand to brand, and you just want to be sure to use it correctly. The instructions on this package of epoxy recommended that you use the container that it came in, that little plastic clear part, as the mixing place. So you take off this little black plastic piece that comes with the syringe, you press the 2-part epoxy into this container, and then you mix them up using this little black tool that I have. So that's super easy. I think they said to mix it 20 times or something like that. And be sure to do this in really small batches because this is a quick drying epoxy. And you don't want to harden this epoxy before you actually get to use it because, well, then it's like throwing your money away. So I would just mix a little bit at a time, and then I would apply it to that section of my little flowers that I'm making here with these glass pieces. And then when that was done, I would mix up more and so on and so forth. You'll see as this video progresses that what I've done it in very small amounts at a time, just enough for maybe 1 or 2 applications of each of the plates. And in this case, that little candlestick. And not too much so that I have time to apply it before it sets up and dries. Once I had all of my flowers arranged, I allowed them to sit still overnight, and they just dried like all night long. And the great thing about this epoxy is that you can clean it up with rubbing alcohol. So I just threw some on a paper towel and cleaned up my hands, cleaned up the tools, and I was sure to clean up the nozzle of the epoxy container so that it wouldn't, dry itself shut and then I wouldn't be able to use it anymore. You'll also notice that I used that little cup to hold the syringes upright instead of laying them down on their side. They would just drip out and waste, and I don't like to do that. Now for the stems of my flowers, I found these spindles. Actually, they're not spindles. This is part of a bed frame, an old-fashioned bed frame. I've had these pieces laying around for a long time, and they happen to have this long groove down the center. So I asked my husband to cut some rebar, and I'm going to lay that rebar just in that groove along the whole spindle, and I'm using epoxy to secure it in there. Now, 2 of them, I did a really good job of getting plenty of epoxy, but one of them, I didn't apply enough epoxy, and I should have mixed up more, and you know how it is. You kind of underestimate what you need, and then you don't go back and do it. So I did have to do the third one the next day and allow it to set overnight again. So that held my project up a little bit. But you can see that rebar just fits right inside. Then I grabbed my clamps and I clamped it down, and I allowed these to set overnight as well. The idea that I had is that I would attach these zip ties on the back of these these plate flowers, and then I could zip tie around that beautiful spindle with the rebar in it. So I put the epoxy on, I let it dry overnight. The epoxy assured me that it would stick to any surface, plastic, glass, wood, like the whole thing. So that's what I did, and I let them dry overnight, so I followed the directions carefully. And then the next day, when I went to put the zip ties around that beautiful spindle, they pulled right off of the plate. So I had to remove the zip ties and the leftover epoxy. I didn't get a video of that. My husband helped me to do it. And we came up with another solution. I'll show you here in just a minute. I like to use supplies that I already have on hand, and I have lots of spindles, and I also have a full box of these things. They're called a candle cup. I've used them in lots of projects here on my channel, and I thought, oh, now that spindle will fit inside that candle cup perfectly, and then I just have to attach the candle cup to the back of these glass plate flowers. So my husband took them over to his workshop, and he sanded down one side so that they would be flat, and I'd have lots of surface to epoxy the back side, the flat side of the candle cup to the back side of the plates, and that worked out great. Now on one of them, I did not get enough epoxy, and about 2 weeks later, the plate fell right off. You can see the epoxy is still adhered to the wood, but it came right off of the glass. It fell down and it hit the side of the container that I have it in. You'll see here at the end how I have them set up on my patio, and it just cracked that one piece of glass. Fortunately, it didn't go all over the place, so I'm thankful for that. The strange thing is that the epoxy held all those layers of the heavy glass, but did not hold the glass side of the wooden candle cup. It's so strange. I think maybe I just didn't use enough epoxy. So the plan is to add more epoxy so that they stick and adhere like the others did. And they're looking really good. Just if you do this, be sure that you apply plenty of epoxy to the surfaces. Make sure that you follow the directions in mixing and stirring, the appropriate amount of time, and give it plenty of dry time. And then you'll have beautiful glass plate garden flowers just like the ones that I've made here. I hope you enjoyed watching. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.